You ever have a day where the whole world decides to test just how much you're willing to take before you snap? That's what this story is for me. Let me lay it out right from the start. No fancy preamble when that shiny envelope showed up in my mailbox, addressed in gold-embossed script from Silver Mesa Heights Community Association. My first thought was, what is this, a sweepstakes scam? Only the punchline was real, and it stung a hell of a lot more than any joke inside, was an offer to buy nearly 600 acres of my family's Wyoming pasture for a grand total of $150,000. You could almost smell the audacity. Prime land, with a creek, a private well, access roads, all of it. I laughed out loud so hard my old dog Red thought I'd lost my mind. But tucked in with the generous offer was a threat dressed up in legal lingo: 10 days to engage, or they'd push for county reassignment and force me out. Yeah, that happened. Now, I've been living on this land since I was old enough to ride a fence rail. My granddad bought it after W-2, back when banks didn't ask too many questions, and a handshake meant something. We're talking thousands of acres, pine-high plains, even an old mining shaft right in the heart of what these folks now called Silver Mesa Heights. They built their fancy development right on top of my family's old mining parcel, probably thinking nobody would notice, or maybe just betting I'd be too old, too tired, or too broke to fight. They picked the wrong cowboy, let me tell you. First thing I did wasn't to send a letter or call a lawyer. I drove straight into town, marched right up to the county records office, and asked for every scrap of paper on Silver Mesa Heights. Holly, the clerk, she's known me since I was pitching Little League. She saw the look on my face and just handed me everything I needed without asking questions. Sitting at that old metal table surrounded by maps and yellow deeds, I found it the original lease, signed in '48 by the Lang family, my folks, for a 99-year term, non-renewable unless we said so, and guess what? Nobody had ever said so. As far as the law cared, that land was still ours, and everything built on it, the houses, the fountains, even their precious golf course, was standing on ground that didn't belong to them. That's when I called my attorney, Evelyn Marsh. If you've never seen a judge look scared, you've never met Evelyn. She read the letter, grinned, and said, "They know who they're messing with." I slid her the lease and told her, "They will." By the time the sun set behind my hills that evening, Evelyn had filed a formal notice with the county and fired off a cease and desist to the HOA's legal eagles. That's how quick things move when you don't blink. 3 days later, another envelope, this one as cheap as the first was shiny, slid under my gate. An invitation to a negotiation at the Silver Mesa Heights Community Hall, business casual attire, of course. I almost tossed it in the stove, but something told me I needed to stare these folks in the eye. So I drove in boots and jeans dust from the ranch still on my jacket, and walked into a room full of pressed khakis and fake flannel, all of them sipping on bad coffee and staring at me like I was the entertainment. There she was, Karen Walsh, HOA president name tag, sparkling voice dripping with that particular brand of fake cheer only a certain type of suburban dictator can manage. "We're here for unity, not division," she said, eyeing me over her glasses. "You mean unity as long as everyone agrees with you," I shot back. Her smile got real tight, real fast. We sat across from each other, her flanked by a lawyer and a board member who looked like he'd never had a bad day in his life. She offered up her Vision Progress community opportunity. I told her it was a joke, and I handed her the lease, watching her face go pale. Her lawyer tried to play tough, tossing around adverse possession, but in Wyoming, that dog don't hunt if you never gave notice, and they hadn't. I slid across the official cease and desist, told her she'd better read every word. She tried to keep it together, but I could see the cracks forming. "This doesn't have to be adversarial," she said, voice thin. "No," I told her, "but it's about to be." Let me back up a sec, because the real chaos didn't even start till I got home. My phone blew up, calls from numbers I didn't recognize, messages from HOA board members suddenly desperate for a chat. Evelyn called to tell me the county had logged our filings. The hammer had officially dropped. Next morning, the bank froze. The HOA's credit, turns out, it's hard to get a loan when you can't prove you actually own the land. Their insurance pulled out. The whole thing unraveled faster than you can say fraudulent deed. Residents got wind of it quick. Suddenly, people wanted to know why repairs had stopped, why the new pool wasn't opening, why they were hearing rumors about a land dispute from their neighbors instead of their board. Karen doubled down, called an emergency HOA meeting, turned it into a rally against me, painted me as some land-hoarding villain hell-bent on ruining their paradise. And then she dropped the bomb, announced a special assessment of $5,000 per household to fight my unjust legal claims, claimed it was a unanimous vote. Except it wasn't. Sunday morning, Tom Arburn, an old-timer from their original committee, knocked on my door, looked me straight in the eye and said, "She says I voted yes. I never got a ballot." Turns out signatures were forged. Some folks were out of state. One had been dead for months. That's when I handed Tom a copy of everything: the lease, the filings, the cease and desist. He left my kitchen shaking his head, and within days, the cracks in the HOA turned into fault lines. 3 more residents called me quietly, asking what was really going on. The board was splitting apart. Karen, though she wasn't done. She filed a formal claim with the county, arguing my lease was abandoned, that their investments gave them rights, even tried to rally the residents behind her with another petition. Only half those signatures were forged too, including one from a man who died 7 months earlier. Evelyn moved fast: fraud, forgery, deceptive collection of funds. She threw the book at them. Then we got a break. A resident named Andrea, new to town, but sharp as a tack, forwarded us an email thread from inside the HOA. In it, Karen called me the cowboy problem, and her own treasurer questioned whether the lease was in fact still valid. We had them. At the same time, Tom tracked down a retired real estate guy named Walter Grant, who'd handled paperwork for the original developers. He remembered the lease was active, knew the whole thing was dirty, and he was ready to testify. By now, this wasn't just a property dispute, it was federal wire fraud, since Karen's levy emails had crossed state lines. And right when Evelyn started prepping affidavits, Karen sued me for defamation and interference, desperate to shut me up before the truth burned its way through the HOA. We didn't even flinch. The judge threw out her injunction, admitted our counterclaim for fraudulent levy and land encroachment, and scheduled a hearing. The day we went to court, Karen showed up with a new lawyer, sunglasses inside, looking for all the world like a washed-up soap star. The state prosecutor laid out everything: fraud, forgery, illegal funds, and the forged petition with the signature of a dead man. Tom testified. Andrea read Karen's emails out loud. Walter produced the do not disclose to bank memo. I told the jury about my family, the land, the threats, the lies. When the verdict came in, it was unanimous: guilty on all counts. Fraud, forgery, criminal mismanagement, and misuse of fiduciary powers. The civil verdict landed like a haymaker: over $3 million in damages. Full rights to the land, all HOA claims voided, and every HOA asset right down to the pool noodles placed under my estate's control. Karen got 17 years, no chance at parole for 10. She walked out of that courtroom in cuffs, never looked back. You'd think I'd feel satisfied. Maybe I did for a minute. But standing on the ridge above Silver Mesa, watching the sun rise over the abandoned clubhouse, the faded HOA signs, the locked-up fountains, I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about setting things right. I didn't evict the residents. We drafted real leases, fair and clean, offered folks a choice. Some stayed relieved. Some left bitter or broke. On the land they promised would be an exclusive eco-park, I built a public garden. No gates, no codes, just neighbors, just air. Started a volunteer firehouse, an equestrian center for local kids. No more boardroom cowboys, just honest folks and open sky. On the 4th of July, we threw a barbecue where the old HOA lawn used to be. Tom brought his grandkids. Andrea played DJ. Even Walter showed up in a hat so old it probably remembered the first lease. He handed me a beer and said, "Ever think about running for county commissioner?" I just laughed, standing there under the fireworks thinking about everything we'd survived. Here's what I know now. Ownership isn't a deed or a title. It's how hard you fight for what's yours. Next time some slick HOA president comes waving a glossy envelope, they better be real sure who owns the dirt under their feet. So what do you think was justice served? Who was right, who was wrong, and where's the line between defending your home and running a community into the ground? I want to hear your take. Drop a comment, share your story. Let's talk about what fair really means when neighbors and power and the law collide.